alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen. I have something to say. I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning from Grandpa Dennis's Turning. Hello, my name is Dennis Pravinsky, and welcome to Grandpa Dennis's Woodturning Studio. Today's topic is steady rests. I'm going to show you the custom-made steady rests that I have and talk a little bit about their use and how they're made. Let's start off at the bottom. This is a piece of angle iron, so it's exactly a right angle, which is important. And I've bolted it onto the round circle. There's also an indexing piece that's right in the middle here. The width of this piece of steel fits exactly on my bed between the ways. And what that does is it allows the entire piece to be indexed so that when I slide it up and down the bed, it's always going to be perpendicular to the bed. This is the capture clamping block that's made especially for the lathe bed. These can either be made or you could buy them from onewaytools.ca. They should be ordered to fit the inside dimension of that slot that's in your bed. These 2-inch wide arms have a slot cut right down the center, and that's to accommodate the bolt that holds them in place so that they can move up and down and fit exactly on your piece. And then just tighten the bolt and that keeps that in place. However, what I found when I first started using my steady rest is that as the pressure from the turning piece increased, this arm started to move. So I had to find a way to keep the arm solid without it moving. I put a small piece of steel on here and bolted it onto the circle, and that piece of steel is exactly the dimension of the slot. So when I put it over top, there's very little play. So now centrifugal force can't create this kind of concept that I was having trouble with. There's a number of ways that can be designed to stop that creeping. These roller bearings are from skateboards. They're a very hard rubber, so it's less chance of marking your wood piece, and the bearings in them are exceptional, so they run smoothly and quietly, and they're just bolted on to the arm. One of the drawbacks I have with my particular steady rest is because it's made out of such thick steel, it is heavy. It's probably 30 pounds plus, and it is large. So that creates some problem in a real small shop in terms of lifting it and storing it. One of the advantages to the heavy steel is its robustness does cut down on vibration and makes for a better tool. I'll put this on the lathe and you can see how it works and some of the features there. I'll now install the steady rest so you can see how that works. This is a view of the underside. I've got a piece of steel bolted onto the base, and that piece of steel fits in between the ways of the bed. And this is the capture system that goes underneath. When you tighten the bolt, it pulls up. In this part of the video, you can see how the steady rest can move forward and back, just like your tailstock. This is my steady rest. This is essential when you're hollowing out large pieces like this, or when you're doing coring. The idea behind it is these rollers fit against the piece and keep any vibration from happening or wobbles if it's not connected to your headstock well enough. This piece was made at the same time by the machine shop that made my lathe. This bolt is drilled and tapped into the circle, and that is lowered onto the piece. One of the issues with this is when, and you'll see it when I do some hollowing, I've had to put my laser pointer up high enough to get past the top. When that rod goes up for a large piece like this, I need my laser pointer to go above that. So I've had to extend the rod that's holding my laser pointer. When the machine shop made this, they made it out of one solid sheet of steel. The center circle was cut out, and they also took that piece, leftover piece, and made a 16-inch plate for me, circular plate. They welded a nut onto one side of that plate, and it's got the same threads as my headstock, which is 1.5 inches by 8 threads per inch. And then they trued up the nut and trued up the faceplate, and I use that as a sanding disc. Very useful, and it's 16 inches, which is a nice size. The size of this circle is important. You have to look at what is your largest piece that you're going to be making and have this steady rest made large enough for that. It's important because the steady rest's most useful function is for very large pieces. So,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I'll put this in position now. I'm positioning it in such a way that the rollers hit on the highest part, and you want that relatively flat, otherwise it might start to try and creep down or creep up the piece. You'll note that I have 3 arms holding the bearings. A lot of people will put 4 in. I do have a 4th, but I've noticed that it really doesn't make any difference. It's just a lot more work to put it up and set it in place. I also think that the steady rests that are made in a hexagon shape work just as well as the circular ones. So I think it's just a matter of the materials you've got and how you want to do it. Seems to be working okay. The importance of that piece of steel on the other underside that fits in between the bed is that it keeps your entire steady rest absolutely at a right angle to the bed. If the steady rest were tilted, as an exaggeration, then these wheels would not be able to flow properly, and it may creep the whole steady rest forward or backward. So the important feature of the steady rest is to be at a right angle to the bed and also to be perpendicular, completely straight up and down. Now, if you're making something like this, cutting this out of one piece of steel becomes important in that this whole apparatus is all trued. If you're going to take pieces like that and weld them together into a hexagon, you have to make sure that they're all on the same plane. Sometimes in welding that's quite difficult because the metal tends to warp a bit. The circle is 1/2 inch steel. These bars are 3/8. This urn that I'm turning is 10 inches in diameter and 10 inches roughly in length. It weighed 36 pounds. Now, I have it attached to a waste block that is epoxied onto the bottom and a number of screws holding a faceplate. That's a very secure setup. However, at 36 pounds with this type of diameter and this reach out over and this depth, that's an awful lot to ask for when hollowing this out. As a result, a steady rest for this is almost essential. There's also opportunities to get large blocks like this. This is a number of burled pieces inside, and I put them in a pail, filled it with resin, and now it's cast. This is in the 20-pound range, and again, I would flatten this out, and I'd put a glue block on here with epoxy glue. And then I would put my faceplate onto the glue block. That's a very solid connection. However, if I want to core this out and make 3 other bowls out of this piece, that's an awful lot of stress on here and on that connection. That's where a steady rest really comes in handy as well. Prior to the steady rest, I would turn this so it's nice and true, and the wheels can run smoothly on that. When researching steady rests and looking at what's available online, there aren't that many distributors that are selling steady rests. Most of them are done by people who make them themselves. Again, not many will take a full sheet of steel and cut a circle out of it. Most people will use 2-inch steel and make a hexagon. The other issue is measuring it to the maximum size you're going to be turning. And that's an important consideration. I've also seen online a number of people make them out of wood. I don't know how well they work, but that's another option. Another drawback of my steady rest for me is the fact that it has some weight to it. I would suspect it's in the 30-pound range. And it's quite awkward. In a very small shop, you don't have much space to store things. And that becomes a bit of an issue for me. This has been part 2 of a 3-part series on hollowing. The first part was my video on the capture system for hollowing. This part is on the steady rest, and the next part coming in the next few weeks is on an articulated arm, specially made for hollowing. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the whole series. Please leave a comment as to whether it was helpful or if you think there are parts in it that need a better explanation. In addition, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel and hit the bell, which allows you to get a notice every time I post a new video. Go to my YouTube channel, Grandpa Dennis Woodturning, and see the rest of my videos. Until the next time, keep turning.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning. For Grandpa Dennis is turning.